All right, 6 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, everyone. First up, we have approval of the meeting agenda.
Motion to approve the meeting agenda?
Second?
Heath and Ashley, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, item number 4, I'm going to open up the public hearing for proposed resolution to expend funds for the district's flexibility account at 6:01. In previous years, the planned expenditures were for salary and benefits and any other general fund expenditures. This action will allow the school district to transfer unexpected, unobligated amounts from the teacher leadership supplement, the professional development supplement, and the homeschool assistant supplement to the flexibility account. There continues to be a carryover of funds in these fund balances after meeting the obligations of the program. Sarah, do we have any public comments on this one?
I did not receive any prior to the meeting.
All right. Would anyone like to make any public comments on this item? All right, hearing none, I believe we can close that public hearing at also 6:01. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing for the 2025-2026 North Polk Proposed School Calendar. We'll open that at 6:02.
So to start this one, I do have a presentation that we'll run through quick, just with similar rationale to what was provided in the video that we posted online last week, just kind of going over how we got to the different changes for the calendar. So here I was thinking everyone was here for the public hearing on the flexibility spending, but maybe not. I say that in jest. As a school district, our mission statement has been and will continue to be learning for all by learning from all. Learning is a very, very important thing to us here. We want to make sure we're supporting all of our students, regardless of the age, the building that they're in, and this is a challenge as a growing district to make sure that we live out the mission. A challenge that we're ready for and excited to do, but certainly a challenge. Here's our vision as a district for learners to become quality producers, knowledgeable people, problem solvers, effective communicators, and collaborative workers, all while keeping in mind our core values of relationships, respect, responsibility, resourcefulness, and resilience. I even got them in the right order, too. You can go to the next one. All right, so we're going to start with the double routing. This is not a new concept. There's a lot of school districts much larger than us that do double routing and altered start times of their schools. For us, it has become a necessity. The hardest position, and I say this over and over again, the hardest position we have to hire as a school district is bus driver. We currently run 22 routes, and thankfully have people assigned to do all the routes, but this is because we've hired a lot of our regular subs. And so on a daily basis, and we have one of our drivers here tonight with us, we have our transportation director, Marcy Hannigan, driving a bus. We have our mechanic driving a bus. We have teachers here at the high school driving buses. I got my CDL over the summer because I always said I never wanted a volleyball team to not be able to play the game because we can't get them to where they need to go. We have the hardest time filling our drivers when they're absent for different reasons because we've hired our regular subs. And so by decreasing the number of needed drivers, it gives us that padding to be able to confidently run a high-quality transportation system with the number of drivers that we currently have. Now, you might say, well, how is that going to help? Well, by double routing, if we go to 16 routes versus 22 routes, but those 16 routes run twice, essentially we're running 32 routes versus the 22. And I know that I've been on buses where we've had, capacity on bus. Thankfully this year there's another thought in having the double routing is right now working with the city of Alleman, there is a little bit of a traffic congestion that happens north of the middle school around 3 o'clock in the afternoons. Thankfully, we appreciate all the parents cooperating in lining up where we want them to line up, and most of the time that congestion's gone by 3:20. But it is a little bit of a congestion. Thankfully, we've never had an accident. We've never had any injuries. But by doing different times for the middle school and the high school versus Central Elementary, it does alleviate some of that traffic that we have. The other thing right now for the Alleman campus, we do have a wide array of ages on the same buses, which is not something that we want to have. It's just where we're at currently. If there is an issue, it ends up taking the time of 2 to 3 administrators, where if all of the students were similar in age, it would be less administrative time to handle some of these bus situations, as I look over to our wonderful administrators over there. And then there is some efficiency. As our drivers can tell you, every time we run a route, there's a pre-trip that has to be done. And so there has to be added time for this pre-trip of 22 buses. With the double routing, it does eliminate the pre-trip because the bus would run the elementary route, pick up students, drop them off, and then without the bus stopping, then seamlessly run the secondary route. There wouldn't be a need for a second pre-trip. And so we'd only be pre-tripping 16 buses versus 22 buses. So there is a little efficiency with that. We do know that change is not easy. That it is not something that we are wanting to do. This is more of a necessity thing than it is something that we want to do. It is early start time for elementary. That's the one concern. Kicked for the football team and was one of the leads in the musical this year. And I think that's a really cool opportunity that our students get here. If we went earlier with the secondary, so if we went to 7:30 with the secondary, that bumps all of our fine arts up even earlier. And people say, well, right now we're in the middle of winter in Iowa. It is dark and it is cold in the mornings. And think about those young kids out there. I feel bad about them, but at least they're elementary age students that likely have supervision by their parents that early in the day. What makes me more nervous is our 15-year-old drivers, if we bump start times earlier, driving in cold, dark, possibly inclement weather to get to the fine arts activities. Driving makes me much more nervous than it is students getting on buses at that time. Siblings starting and finishing at different times, that's a luxury that we've had as a district. For some families, it might be a positive seeing that split. Other families, it might be a challenge. And we do feel bad about creating these family logistic challenges, but ultimately, we need to be able to provide a effective busing system. And then the other thing, that there could be confusion with, well, what bus am I getting on? And so as part of our new transportation system, there is the ability to have students badge on to the school buses. And so that's something we're going to be piloting this spring, starting with Big Creek here in February, that students would use a badge similar to this that would have a barcode, and we'd encourage them to connect it to their book bag and then badge on. And so it will actually alert them if they are getting on the wrong bus with that system. And so we'll be piloting that this spring to hopefully be fully implemented for the fall with the system. So we have accurate data on, well, how many students are regularly riding the bus. If heaven forbid we ever had a bus accident, we could have an accurate count of who is all on that bus. So the bus system will help with that one. The next portion of it is the what goes into making the school calendar, and we did put a few copies of the proposed calendar out there. There are things that are immovable by the state of Iowa, one of those things being August 23rd right now. Next year it will be August 25th, as August 23rd falls on a Saturday. That is something that's not movable. 1,080 hours. That is the state required minimum for students kindergarten through 11th grade. For seniors, it is 1,050 hours, so it is a few hours shorter for seniors for that minimum. You can still pick days in the state of Iowa. I don't know hardly any districts that still go days. Most school districts go by the hours. Professional learning is in code, 36 hours of professional learning for staff. Our current teacher contract is 189 days. Our administrative contract, 260. 12-month employee holidays is 10, and then the 9-month classified holidays is 3. So those are all things that go into what is our school calendar. The one thing that administratively we talked about a fair amount is keeping in mind what is our priorities. And you see it anytime we make a weather call, that the first thing that we say is the safety and well-being of our students and staff is our number one priority. Certainly students aren't going to learn if it's not a safe environment for them here. But learning is also a big thing to us. We really, really want students to learn here. It's in our mission statement twice, learning for all by learning from all. And with the proposed calendar of eliminating the late start Mondays and having consistent full days, 162 consistent full days, and then 6 early outs, 4 for conferences, and then the end of the right before winter break being an early out, and then right before the end of the school year being an early and out, it provides more consistency while it provides time for teacher learning as well. We value collaboration a lot as a school district. Our collaborative teams meet during that late start Monday times right now. What we keep hearing from teachers is we need more time. Not in number of hours, but it's very difficult to get into a great conversation on what assessments we're going to put together for knowing whether students are meeting the standards and able to demonstrate that. But then we have to stop because we have to get ready to teach students on Monday mornings. And so Ankeny made a transition to full-day professional learning just last year, I believe. Johnston made a transition recently to this. To me, it's that natural progression of our collaborative teams are working effectively. They need bigger chunks of time to really wrestle with these conversations of how do we know whether students are meeting the standards, and then what do we want them to do to demonstrate their learning. Go to the next one. So this is the proposed calendar. One piece of feedback we heard is it would be great to have a consistent Monday of the month off, and so we did do some changes from what was pushed out initially to where every single month of the school year other than March, it will be the first Monday of the month that will be off. September won't be professional learning, that'll be Labor Day, but the rest of them, it will be the first Monday of the month that will be off, and then we do have the 2 Fridays conference week that will be professional learning days. This was something we surveyed staff on. Do you want the professional day conference week on Monday versus Friday? And it was overwhelmingly about 75% said, give us that on the Friday of conference week versus the Monday. We did talk, does it make sense to go all Fridays for professional learning? And administratively, we felt like, again, the professional learning days are for the teachers learning. We felt like Monday would be much more powerful and just in a better mindset to come in and have those collaborative conversations and be more fresh so that we get what we are intending from the professional learning days. I'm not going to read that off there, but I think there are a lot of positives to us changing. I forgot to get to Big Creek today, and if Amanda Parker was here, we have a student that constantly is pushing me to get rid of the late start Mondays because of consistency. We know for a variety of reasons, consistency is important to our students, and with this change, instead of having one day out of every 5 be a different schedule and shorter times at the high school, shorter times at the middle school, altered schedules at the elementary, we would have 162 days of consistent learning for students with the proposed schedule. The other thing is it does give us more hours and be able to take off different times. So in the proposed calendar, there is 17 days over the winter break time that we would not have school. And then we are planning on putting some teacher work time into the contract that will be individual teacher directed and not directed at the district or building level. Most of our professional learning days will be building or grade level directed. We will still likely have 2 professional days that we get the band together, get everyone here to do some whole scale learning, but a lot of it will be directed at the building level. And then with Monday being the day off, because we know it will affect preschool staff, because Monday is the day that we don't have preschoolers, we would align our preschool day off with our transitional kindergarten day off of Wednesdays, which I know that gets confusing for some people. They're like, who's not in school on Wednesday? Well, that's TK, not pre-K. So we would move that day to be consistent for both preschoolers and transitional kindergarten to Wednesday would be the day those students don't have school. And in talking with our transitional kindergarten teachers, they love that because then students come back a little bit more rested, having had that midweek day off versus the 3-day weekend for preschool. And again, there's 2 sides to every coin. There is a less frequent touch points for our collaborative teams. We will still have the expectation that within each building, the collaborative teams meet once a week outside of the student day or during common planning time, if there is common planning time. And then the other thing we have talked about is the personal leave would only be granted upon unique circumstances because we are taking all of that collaborative time and grouping it together for our full day professional learning. Man, this was longer than I thought. I'm doing a lot of talking here. I kind of already hit on a lot of this, so I'm not going to reiterate them. You want to go to the next one? Oh, is that it? Perfect. So I did a lot of talking. I know we have some people here that would like to share as well, so we will get to the public part of the public hearing.
All right, Sarah, did you have any written comments or objections received prior to the hearing?
No, I did not.
I had one email that I will touch on the high notes of it if they're not brought up by other people throughout the public hearing.
All right, everyone. So generally we have like a little statement on you get 5 minutes, got to be respectful, please. Don't make any disparaging comments about staff members. I don't think for this topic we necessarily need to do that. So, and generally the board doesn't engage or ask any questions, but I would also say for this topic, if you have clarifying questions for anybody that approaches and wants to talk about something, please do so. I think with just the topic on school calendar, making an informed decision is important, and those questions might help. So would anyone like to address?
We have.
Yeah, the 3 people that filled out a sheet are, if you have anything to say, please step forward.
Emily Feldman.
I said
Oh.
no pressure. Even if they filled out a sheet, they don't have to step forward. So.
Eric Crawford.
I just first want to acknowledge that I understand that you guys are in a tough position. You have to make decisions for a lot of people, and not everyone's going to agree with it. So I appreciate all the effort that you put into coming up with this proposal. My one point of feedback on that is the communication that we've received so far is, here's what we're doing. I guess if you want to show up, you can come make comments. Like didn't seem like there was much like proactive. Yes, we actually want feedback from the parents in the school district on how this could impact you moving forward. Some of my thoughts, and I hope that there are more questions and opinions and thoughts. Like, I don't want to be a jerk, but I look at it as, especially for working families that have 2 parents in the district. I have a first grader now. We'll have a kindergartner next year, but it's not going to be too many years before we have a middle schooler and elementary schoolers. And I have a 1-year-old at home too. That's going to complicate things whenever he gets to school too. Right now, it's convenient and easy for us for a 1 day a week late start because it's 2 hours. To figure out how that works for sitters or daycare or whatever. What's being proposed now is like an hour a day that we had to figure out, a half hour in front end and a half hour after, where we're trying to figure out, not me yet, because I don't have the middle schooler yet, but for parents that have, I mean, there's a lot of families that have multiple kids in both middle school and elementary school. Like, you're now asking them to figure out how to account for a full hour of their work day, with a half hour on the front end and the back end. So, and then a full day a month also that is either going to be PTO or something else. So I can imagine that might cause some difficulty for some families. One question that came up was there any discussion or conversation about having the Alleman campus start at the same time, and then Polk City started at either the offset time one way or another? Don't care if it's 7:50 or 8:20, to help with at least a portion of the district who may run into that offset time being an issue. And is there any consideration to help with that half hour to have either or both, like a before and after school, call it program or something, so that there can be one drop-off time for all students? I guess this would apply primarily to people in Alleman, which I'm a central parent right now, so that parents with a middle schooler and an elementary schooler can have one drop-off and know that their kids could go for a half an hour to a common space to read books, to do whatever kids do in elementary school these days. And my wife wanted to know where should we park for a half an hour in Alleman in that middle time? Is there room at the high school to do that, or just park on the street and wait? Like, I guess that's a question that she had as well. So that's all of my comments and questions I have.
I have a quick
Yes.
question for you. You mentioned accounting for an hour every day.
Yes.
For before and after. Are you referencing just that you would have?
I'm looking at it as, I mean, for people who are two working parents, they're gonna have to figure out, I mean, is it one of them's gonna delay their work day in a half hour on the front end or the back end? Like, there's an hour total there that we don't have to account for right now because it's a one drop-off time for our kids. So,
I just wanted to make sure I understood what you were saying.
yeah. Any other questions?
No, but I got some answers if
Okay.
you guys are okay with me. So the conversation actually started in October of 23 with the School Improvement Advisory Council that is made up of a handful of parents, and talking about, this is a real possibility for us. What is the feedback? And the feedback we got from the SIAC committee in 23 is, people love the way things are. Let's keep it the same as long as possible, which we kept it the same for this year. I can't confidently say that we can limp along another year with our current system. And so we've talked about it. We did our SIAC committee, had a new group of SIAC parents this year, and had good conversations over 2 meetings about, well, what does it look like to put together the start times. And so I appreciate you coming and sharing, because it is a little tricky. We want to have a good proposal to put forth before we really take a lot of questions and feedback. You asked for before or after school care. We did partner with Lakes Early Learning in the fall of 22 to try to start before and after school care with a community vendor in our spaces. There wasn't the interest to show that there was a need for it. I think at most we had 10 enrollees sign up at West, and I don't even think we ever got to 5 at Central. And so for the business, it didn't make sense to offer that in the buildings as possible. You talked about dropping off. We do allow students into the middle school, and the high school I think is pretty similar. What next year will be about 8 o'clock. And so if parents drop their elementary kids off at 7:45, and then I need to get to work. I'm going to drop my kid at 7:50. We have students that wait outside the main entrance area. On inclement weather days like today, we let them come into the atrium. We're not going to make kids stand outside on cold weather days. And then once 8 o'clock hits, we have places that they're designated to go to at the middle school. High school, it's a little bit more free-flowing in the mornings, but Commons is really where we have the students wait until the dismissal bell. If they have to get to a class for retaking a test, if they're meeting with a teacher for some instruction, there's different reasons why students go through a little bit more. But and I had yes written down to one more thing, but I forget what it was. So parking. We do have extra parking in the high school, the far distant part of the lot, and behind the middle school we do have a little bit more parking. So there is spaces if people wanted to, but again, we don't want people to feel like they're obligated to hang out. The kids can come a little bit early and read. With holding students, it gets a little gray area because if the school were to run a before or after school care that we ran, we would have to follow all the DHS guidelines and all of the hoops that go along with that. And so that would be a lift for the district to undertake if we were the ones to do it. That's why we like partnering with a community partner, because they're the ones that do all the DHS approvals and paperwork that go along with it.
Hey, Michael, one question for you. The transition from the 2-day late starts to the single day per month, were there other districts that have also transitioned away from the 2-day or 2-hour late starts?
Johnson and Yankee are the two that I'm aware of.
Okay.
And I think there's been pretty good feedback from the staff there. And when we surveyed our staff on that, it was 90% said, yes, we want to get rid of the 2-hour late starts and have the full day professional development. And the one thing I've encouraged, it would be all of our students that were off. So if you have neighbor children that are high schoolers and you can have an agreement with them, finding a neighbor kid that's older and responsible to watch is something that I've suggested. Again, I don't want to say that that's your only answer, because I don't know that's a great answer for all families, but just an idea.
Thank you.
On that, would it be possible to re-explore or open up if there is interest in having a community partner for the single days off? I don't know if that's off the table completely. I know we haven't explored it yet. Just a suggestion to the board. You don't need to respond to that. Just a thought that maybe. Yeah. It's a different schedule.
Other people that wanted to
Sarah,
speak?
who do we have next? Anyone else like to speak?
I was out running deliveries on my way here, and so my nose is dripping and my throat is sore after being outside. I'm sorry for that. I'm Tony Thompson. I've got kids in kindergarten and first grade this year and a stepson in 8th grade, and we are located 2 miles east of Elkhart. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we're on kind of the far outer edge of the district, and so that's just from a bus standpoint. Our kids' bus times are already pretty long, so I'm not sure if the double routing has any impact on that or not. I assume probably not too much. Question from the financial side, running a very small delivery fleet myself, miles on the bus, how does that compare cost-wise? I assume that we're running 32 routes, or like you talk about an aging bus fleet and having that cost. How does what's the analysis between that and the cost of bus drivers? That's the main question. Derek asked some very good questions earlier. Staggered start time. Some other folks that I've talked to were curious about that, if it would be possible. Almond versus Polk City elementaries. Maybe that's more convenient for the parents. And then the one, I wonder, do you have numbers on how many families have the situation where it's multiple buildings, or it would be elementary, and how many families will have to deal with that trade-off? Not in favor, not opposed, just more questions than comments.
That was my other yes, was we explored what it would look like, because initially we talked about an Almond start time versus a Polk City start time, but we kind of went back to the equity piece that we want our elementary students to get as similar of an experience within the district, regardless of where you go to school. Now, the other thing too is we really want to limit the amount of students on each bus, and so by having the central students at a different start time than the other students on this campus, it does solve that problem that we don't have as many students on buses. Tony, to answer your question about the length of the routes, again, we're going to have more routes with 32 versus 22, and so the plan is that each individual route should be a little bit shorter because it's not making as many stops along the way. In terms of miles, you're right. We're going to put more miles on the 16 buses that we use, but we will be using our newer vehicles. So the equipment should be better, and then hopefully we can get into a rotation of disposing of some of our older buses. And so never in the planning of this was there a hope from the district office that we would save money. That's not a reason for doing this. I mean, it likely is going to be a wash ultimately in the cost of it. But the reason we're doing this is because we have to, in order that we can guarantee that we're going to run a effective transportation system. We cannot continue to limp along with the few of drivers we have and the oldest as old of equipment as we have. Sorry, I'm not the most articulate at the present moment, but
I just want to make one more comment too. In the 7 years that I've been on the board, we've been saying the same thing about bus drivers. I mean, unfortunately, it's gotten nothing but worse in the 7 years that I've been here. It's, we've done lots of things, tried to be as creative as what we can. A lot in every district you drive around, there's buses sitting everywhere with signs on it that say drivers wanted. And so that is just one of the significant contributors to why we have to and had to start talking about options 2 years ago. It's, like Michael said, change is always hard. But this is one of those that, our hand is not, we don't have a hand to play. We're forced in kind of the direction we have to go with this driver challenge that we've got and continue to have. And I would prefer he not drive a bus most days, but he is willing to do it, which has been very much appreciated.
One thing when we started this, I'll be really honest, I was an absolute no vote. I didn't think it was needed. And I was my mind was changed very strongly when we got this feedback from our staff. One of the things that the reason why I was a no vote is for convenience for my family. My kids love getting up late, going to bed late on a Sunday, getting up late early on a Monday, and going at 10 o'clock. However, it would be very irresponsible for me as a board member not to listen to 90% of the people that we support, that being our staff. And so we have to trust and believe in the professionals that provide us the feedback and the people that are in the buildings every single day. And so that really changed my mind. And obviously, if you guys listen, I ask a lot of questions about our transportation. It is incredibly difficult to manage the fleet of buses that we have. Marcy, you can maybe say it took us a year and a half to get a new bus. And so being able to get in a rotation to replace our bus fleet is something that is going to be a priority for us as we move into this double routing. The other thing is as long as I'm on this board, we will not, as long as support, in my opinion, of going to a subcontractor to run our transportation system. I am absolutely against it. I've heard horror stories about it. I like having the people under our thumb and not somebody else's. So kind of full circle is I'm going to vote yes on this. I had a lot of pause, but again, we have to support our people that provide us the feedback every single day. So thank you.
I'm Emily Feldman, and I have a kindergartner that attends Central. We live just outside of Sheldall, and I also own Lakes Early Learning Center. So when this came out, I was on a vacation, and I kept my mouth quiet because I was like, I feel like I have two different opinions on what my family likes. Ultimately, what that comes down to, like Mondays are great for our family. I know it's not necessarily about our family. It's about what's best for our staff, our teachers that are leading the way for these young kids in our district. So I can completely stand behind the Mondays, going away from that. Viewing it though from a business owner's perspective that deals with a lot of young children, there were several things that came to mind for me. With elementary being dismissed earlier, we depend on high school staff to come in and assist with our elementary students. We are, at our program, fortunate that we have 2 full-time school-age staff with us, and then myself and 2 other directors. A lot of other programs that I'm familiar with do not have those resources, so we're in a different spot. However, with that extra half hour of time, approximately, that elementary kids would be out, I foresee additional families needing after-school care. With the way it sits, we wouldn't be able to accommodate additional children, although we have the physical space to accommodate staffing because of those DHS regulations. So I did have a conversation with Mr. Klein last week and mentioned some things that were being considered. Is it something I don't know where you guys are at with that.
Yeah, we've been talking about it at the high school level. We let our seniors who don't have last period class leave early for the day. We've talked about opening kind of that open campus model up to juniors as well.
Mm-hmm. So that would potentially be something, but I would need to make sure that, I have juniors or seniors employed and that they have that 8th period free. So those were kind of my thoughts around that. The other things, I kind of just had some questions, so I'm sure they've all been things that have been thought through, but just kind of left with me. Will West and Big Creek continue to have that 5-minute offset?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. As you thought about the routes, in my mind, getting kids like dropped off at school in Polk City, running a route, and then making it back over to Alleman, that 30 minutes in my mind does not seem adequate. I know older kids, there's gonna be less of them on the bus, and they're generally a little more efficient and can find a seat. But in my mind, I still think, is that sufficient amount of time? So that was a question. The start time being earlier, I understand like the staggering, but the thought right now, like my daughter, if she rides the bus from home, gets picked up at 7:10. The thought of her getting on the bus at 6:50 just seems incredibly early. So I understand research shows that, secondary students are needing more sleep. However, I think about a lot of these families that I see in our care, their parents' work schedules aren't going to change. They're still going to be at care till 5:30, 5:45, not getting home till 6 o'clock. So are they really going to be able to get to bed any earlier? To accommodate for that extra time in the morning. So were there thoughts around being able to bump everybody back a little bit further? Other questions were regarding preschool start times being bumped up. Families that are dropping their kids off at preschool for midday preschool, which will start, I think it's 11:50 now instead of 12:15. They can probably accommodate that lunch. Kiddos that ride the bus, I am familiar with a few families that their preschooler has been on the bus for almost an hour before getting dropped off at preschool. Are they supposed to serve their kids lunch at 10:15? So, and I know there could be some changes coming to preschool transportation as well. And then the last piece, I guess, would just be knowing that I have several family members that are involved in transportation. So what does that compensation piece look like for them? Because it's going to be longer. I think for a lot of people, our district right now, I think, is compensated well, especially some of our drivers that have shorter routes. If they're having to take on a longer route, what does that look like? And is there going to be an incentive for them to want to continue? So those are my questions. More questions than actual thoughts.
We appreciate the questions. Sorry, I didn't realize my timer was still a duck at the end there. So
I do have one other piece.
Okay.
I would say as far as like after school care goes, I don't know if you guys have received feedback, but like I said, my initial thoughts are that it would be something that there's more need for. As a business owner, I'm open to considering options similar to what we've had in the past. At that point, there wasn't as much need as we anticipated. However, with changes, there could be more need, so. Okay. Yeah, thank you.
The split time, so for the elementary, we will likely drop the students in the morning between 7:30 and 7:35. And so it's not just a 30-minute split till the secondary students would start. It's a bigger split than that for the morning. A known wrinkle that we do need to iron out is the after school time, because there's not that ability to pad our split a little bit. And so we are aware that the middle school and high school students might be waiting a minute or two, maybe a few minutes longer, depending on how many additional routes we will need. Because like Central right now, I don't know that we would need 8 full routes to take Central students home. So we might have 2 or 3 buses that wouldn't do the double route that could start taking some secondary students home at a little bit earlier time. And so depending on numbers, I've talked with Mr. Polberg and Mr. Richards that, it's a situation where we may have to hold students for a little bit longer, or does it make sense for us to add 5 minutes to the secondary day at the end? Now, people have talked about, why don't you just bump everything back? We have a lot of students that are heavily involved in athletic activities that we cannot control the Raccoon River, especially the middle school start times, which is 4:15. And so if you're going anywhere other than Bondurant, Ballard, Sadell's not in our conference, but we do play Sadell in the middle school and a fair amount of things. Our kids are getting out of school early already. And so if it was, well, we're not going to get done with the secondary until 3:40. Well, now we have kids that are missing part of 7th period and all of 8th period. But then the bigger piece of it is a lot of our coaches are also teachers for us. And so then they are not there to instruct as well. And so the secondary is where we've agreed that, well, 5-minute bump back shouldn't have a major effect on us having kids released early and teachers leaving early. But anything bigger than that is going to have a bigger effect on students missing instruction. And again, our most important thing here is student learning. So that is a known wrinkle with the secondary buses in the afternoon of how much of a wait time will those secondary riders have. Now, we've talked in the fall, I know we have very minimal number of students taking the secondary buses because of football, because of volleyball, because of cross country, because of all of these activities they're in. The winter, right now, there is a little bit of a lull in that boys basketball, girls wrestling is going on at the middle school right now. We don't have as much participation there. With the changes, though, one of the things that we have talked about is bumping when we are going to ask people to register their students. The past couple of summers, we've given July 15th is when we want people to register for the transportation piece. We are likely looking at June 1st. And so in connection with that, instead of waiting till April to do returning student registration, we're looking to start that even in February of go ahead and register your kids, which I think with the transportation connected to it, we were able to get 97% of our students registered last year, which was the highest we've had in a long time. But giving us that information as early as possible to be able to look at the routes and be able to let people know what times are going to be the pickup and drop off.
Okay, question real quick. Seth, what time's your last period start?
The regular day, it's like 2:46 or something like that.
Okay, 2:46. I'm just wondering about some of the questions that got brought up with that last period with juniors and seniors, seeing if we can potentially.
Well, seniors, a lot of seniors have the whole second half of it.
So whole second half.
So I think if we recruited some, probably need some help.
Okay.
But if we move to let juniors leave 8th hour, that would be, they'd have plenty of time to get to work too.
Okay.
I'm going to actually piggyback off of what Michael said. I actually asked the very same question about moving everybody just back a little bit. I have two middle schoolers and an elementary school student. The other thing that he made a comment about is we do have a huge portion of our students, if they're not involved in activities, that do have jobs after school that start at 4 o'clock. So if we would move everyone's start time back, we would have a large population of our secondary students that would not be able to make those 4 o'clock or even 4:30 shifts. So that was one of the other disadvantages. As a fellow mom of littles, I don't have those big kid problems quite yet. So I just wanted to share that insight.
And I was wrong on that, James. Late start is 2:46, so regular time is closer to 2:30.
Okay. Thank you. Sarah, do we have anybody else?
One other note I had down here was one of the concerns we heard about not having late starts is my kids are going to miss more school because of appointments. And so I did pull the Ankeny school calendar for next year, and none of our full-day professional development days overlap with any of theirs. And so in terms of I need to get orthodontist appointments, hopefully, I mean, there will be less competition for those full-day professional development days. I think Isla would like to make a comment. Oh, additional compensation, yes. Every year we do look at what our pay rates are for different positions. And knowing that we are asking them to do more work, there will be. It won't be double because there is some efficiency there in not having to do the double the pre-trip and a fair number of things. And right now, we consider route pay an hour and a half. And so we'll likely use that as our barometer when we look at, well, how long does it take them to run the double routes? I don't foresee it being a whole lot longer than an hour and a half, but certainly it is a piece of the puzzle that we want to make sure we're taking care of our staff members.
And on that note, that's a big part of it, what Michael just said, but recruitment and retention of our bus drivers, we have to, again, be able to take care of them. And so that is a piece of the puzzle that's going to be very important for us as a board to figure out.
All right, before we come out of this public hearing, I just want to make sure everyone's had a chance to ask questions, talk, that wants to talk.
I'm Perry Smith. My daughter is a director at New Beginnings in Polk City, and at Friday Night Eats to reinforce this gal from Elkhart. Big topic is being able to get the high schoolers in there to help the employment on the back end. So it's not just her on the very east side of the school district. She's over in Polk City, and she's brought that up. She has great concerns about that too. So I just wanted to reiterate with that gal there.
A few things that didn't get talked about. One was some of our bus stops are on highways that are as fast as speeds as 55 miles an hour. If we double route it, there will be 2 stops on that 55 mile an hour highway versus just 1 stop a day. So there'd be an increased concern with that. And then just reiterating the dark times with the earlier elementary.
One question, Michael, that I'm not sure that we heard from you is, will students' time on the bus see an increase or a decrease with double routing?
Likely a decrease.
And that just comes from less stops, right? So push the start time 20 minutes earlier. I'm not sure we can assume that the kid gets picked up
Correct.
20 minutes earlier because we're hoping that the routes are more efficient, less stops, moves quicker, less time on the bus is the hope.
Because there'll be, I mean, if we all 16 buses end up going the full double routes, that's 32 buses compared to what we run right now at 22. I shouldn't say buses, 32 routes, 16 buses.
Anybody else have any questions or statements they'd like to make?
Do we still use Marcy, do we still use the software that's going to help you be incredibly efficient with the fastest bus routes in the double routing?
Yes, we're using software.
Okay.
Anyone else before I close the public hearing? All right, so action on this actually takes place in new business, so we have some things to go through before that. So I'm going to close the public hearing on the proposed school calendar at 6:51. And Michael, I'll let you do introductions for item 6.
Item 6, we have Mrs. Kim Colt here. She is our technology integrationist. This is a role that we added this year to the district, as we have a lot of great pieces of technology, but having the support there to help our teachers enhance learning through that technology is something that we did not have in place. So Mrs. Colt has been working with a lot of different teachers and has about 5 minutes worth of information. I told her 5 minutes because we're probably going to be long on the public hearing. So I'll turn it over to Kim.
All right. Well, I'm Kim Colt. Moved into the tech integrationist position this year. If we could back up one. There we go. Just, overall idea of the job is to boost learning around technology tools for teachers so that with their increased knowledge of use and how to put them into action, they can start to use them in their classrooms in more creative and new ways. And so my role is a lot of just supporting teachers as they integrate new technologies and always looking to incorporate them in ways that maybe we're going to be providing more collaborative learning opportunities for students, pushing towards more opportunities to build communication skills, reaching outside of the boundaries of the classroom and what opportunities might arise there. And so that's a big kind of overarching goals here. Moving into the position, one of the things I focused on in that first half of the year is some of the district-wide communication pieces. And so I shared my slides with you just a little bit ago, late share there so that you have access to those links maybe to explore further as you see fit. I made a Google site there, kind of a place to house information about different tech tools that we have access to in the district, as well as tech tools they might have interest in exploring. And information about effective technology integration and some other features. At that site, there's also links to newsletters that I've been sending out about every 2 to 3 weeks, information for teachers that generally includes updates on any technology tools that we're currently using, some ideas, maybe new tech tools they might be interested in exploring, often little tech tips, very short things that might be able to help teachers with efficiency or something. And then sometimes ideas for activities or materials that might be suitable for different grade levels that I try to kind of fine tune to where there might be a tech tool that's appropriate to that age group, such as learning copy and paste at first grade or things like that. Also on the site, you could find a link to a YouTube channel where I've started compiling some of the videos for district tech tools. So there's a few there, and looking for the opportunities to make more. And then recently started a section called Tech Sparks, which is for recognizing teacher uses of technology around the district, just a way to be able to share amongst each other. So we've had 3 featured educators in that section so far. All right. So that was kind of district-wide communication, but in this role there's really collaboration, I think, at different scales, for the district, and then providing professional learning at building levels, and then a lot of coaching at the team and individual levels as well. So I picked a few things to link in. One of them is the scope and sequence for technology skills for our students and the computer science standards. I've had a few opportunities to kind of facilitate meetings with that team of teachers, specifically at elementary and middle school, where we have the designated technology teachers, and trying to clarify for tech skills, a lot focused on the Google suite of apps because we utilize that as a district. And so when our students gaining particular skills and making sure that we're aligned across elementary buildings. And then a piece of that is going to be as teachers go to start exploring new things, if we have that kind of tightened up and communicated, then we have maybe better knowledge of if a teacher's going to try something new in their classroom, what are some of the foundational skills that they can expect their students are coming in with because of the good work of those tech teachers on our related arts teams at the elementary, and what are some of the tech skills that they're going to anticipate needing to bolster and teach their students to be able to use those things. So I also linked in an example of a spreadsheet that I recently worked on for second grade literacy. There's been lots of questions and uses of spreadsheets. It seems like lately that I've gotten emails about and working on things. This was one of the bigger ones. It's actually really a pretty big spreadsheet when you start looking in the tabs and things. But a teacher, she sent a message kind of explaining how she is currently collecting some data and had a different vision for how she might be keeping track of kind of the body of evidence as they're adding in assessments aligned with their literacy standards. And so we talked through what she was looking for. We got some ideas on how to build it and had a few checkpoints to refine it a little bit. Ultimately, I helped the teacher with the tech skill to realize some of the things that Google Sheets was capable of. And then I was able to support by also doing some of the heavy lifting then and actually making, the spreadsheet this time around. So I think that was really beneficial for her, but then also she has now the ability to use, if she finds it very helpful here in term 2, as she tries it out for the first time, to be able to adjust it if she wants to expand it to maybe the K2 math standards and use it in the same way. I linked an example of a guide for a district tool. It's the Read and Write literacy toolbar. So that's something that we have available for students that are needing reading supports. So making guides for district tools like Go Guardian, for the new line interactive touchscreens that are expanding in use across the district. So I basically just put that in as an example. And then I linked 3 examples of building level PDs from the first semester. At West, I linked an example document of AI prompts that might be useful in generating student-friendly proficiency scales and assessments that are aligned at differing levels. Across buildings, other opportunities to highlight some of the AI tools that are really specifically geared at teachers right now. Things like DFIT, Magic School, and Notebook LM, and Brisk. There's just lots of them right now to explore. A really cool thing for the district was that we upgraded to the Google Plus edition of our Google Workspace this fall. And so that provided us some new tools we didn't have before, as well as some upgrades to the existing tools. And so, especially at secondary, where there's heavier use of Google Classroom, making sure that teachers have understanding of the tools that are available there and how we might put them into use. And then I linked one from the middle school. This was kind of a collaborative effort with their instructional coach, Emily Young, and then Colin Shago, the new ELP teacher for secondary. They were looking at ways to move what they called their bubble students that are meeting proficiency, but maybe they can try to push them into the exceeding and next level. And so we were looking at tools that might be useful for generating that next level quality content and quality applications of what students would be doing, and then tech tools that might help motivate students so that they are encouraged to reach those next levels. So, all right. And then another collaboration I kind of wanted to highlight today is the use of EPS Reading Assistant that is starting at Central. So this is something the Department of Education invested in EPS Reading Assistant to make it free for elementary schools in Iowa through this summer. And so we got signed up for that. And basically it's an AI-assisted reading tutor. And so students get to select stories from the selection. And as they read, the avatar Amira listens and then provides corrective feedback there in the moment. And then the teacher gets a pretty detailed report back by student about skills that need to be addressed. And then it'll adjust to student level basically when it offers them stories in the future so that they're getting reading selections that are at their level. So I put in a little audio clip of one of our students reading so that you just get a little feel for kind of the measurement there. But really, first and second grade at Central have been exploring it, but second grade is now kind of up and running. They've given students practice and have given a benchmark assessment. And so that picture is from Ms. Dana Zosky's classroom. And I was going to highlight a few upcoming things, developing ideas and some material already, I think, for courses that maybe we can offer teachers for TQ professional development, maybe over the summer. Some of the likely ideas might be Google certification for educators, utilizing Canva in new ways because we are getting a district management set up for Canva hopefully this week. So that might be something because of the action I've seen with Google Sheets for organizing data and things, maybe something specifically targeted at that. And then also just other tech tools that maybe need exploration, especially for teachers that might want to try something bigger, within their classroom. Maybe to be doing something that involves a greater level of communication with students and maybe outside entities and things like that take a lot of planning. Looking at maybe adding an element of looking for technology on learning walks, and that could be in collaboration with the AAA a little bit. Miranda is reaching out. She heard really good things about the AAA services related to technology when she was at some of her curriculum network meetings, and so reaching out to see what might be best to collaborate on, things like technology needs assessments for the district, tools for selecting digital tools. They have a very large menu of things, but I think those are a couple of the things that we could really benefit from getting some of their support on. So, all right, there's an overview. Questions right now?
And Kim had alluded to the interactive displays that we have in the classroom, so new line. We do have a plan in place that all classrooms will have a new line by the 26-27 school year. So West, we have a handful of ones right now, but not a ton for the kindergarten through second grade. So that, and then a couple of departments at the high school are the places that we need to add. And so in 2 years, we'll be all the way there.
Well, I wanted to say that this topic is one of my favorites, and this has been something we've talked about. I mean, this having someone like yourself that's able to bring the new technologies, and I'll speak for one of our previous board members, Joe Hines, when he always wanted to know how the technology was being utilized in the classroom and how it was benefiting students, and we weren't buying, I don't know, James, what would he say, $300 pencils, I think is how he used to phrase it. But there's so many tools and things out there that we can benefit from, and so I love that. And the one thing I really enjoy seeing here is the Tech Sparks, because I know that there's different folks that have really leaned in and are probably leveraging all kinds of tools, and some that are maybe a little more hesitant. And so highlighting those bright spots and where people are being very successful, I think that's fantastic. So thanks for doing that, and I'll be curious to start to see some of those, because that's great. So well done, thank you, I appreciate it.
Well said, Keith. Any other questions?
I'm just really excited to see that we have buildings using EPS. For those who are unfamiliar with it, it's a AI tutor for reading out of the University of Iowa, which is why the Department of Education was able to provide it to schools for this school year. But the research out of it is absolutely astounding. Even compared to a highly trained, well-versed human tutor, in some cases, it's giving students a 50% additional growth rate in use of it for reading improvement. So it can be catered to emerging bilingual students. It can be catered to students that have dyslexia and other learning concerns. And so it really is a very unusual piece of software that our students have access to. So I'm super excited that there's a building using it.
When I got on the school board in 2021, your position didn't exist. And as a district, we spend a lot of money in technology, and there was a lot of technology that was out there that teachers didn't just know how to use. And so what we challenged Michael is, how do we bring somebody in like yourself to be able to help teachers kind of implement that a little bit more into their classrooms? And so I'm glad that we made the move to get that position, because I think it's very, very important. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, everyone. Item number 7. On to the consent agenda. Does anyone have any questions on anything included in the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Ashley and Matt, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, item number 8. Public comments, communications.
Yeah, Jean Koss, who works at our scorers table for basketball, and I didn't realize she's been helping out in different capacities for about 45 years. And so she was awarded for her contribution to high school activities by the Iowa High School Athletic Directors Association. And so she received that award, I believe, on January 3rd. We had her slated to come tonight, and then she emailed me about 2 weeks ago and said, we got a basketball game that night. There's more important places to be. So I said, absolutely, go do the book of the basketball game, but we will mention how great you are and how much we appreciate her time and efforts.
Sarah, anything else?
Nope, nothing else.
Okay. All right, that moves us to administrator and director reports. I'm going to approach this one a little bit differently just for efficiency. So first of all, any administrator or director that wants to highlight something in their report. All right, Chris, do you mind? I asked Chris previously to highlight something.
So Mr. Hill asked me to highlight a few things that were in my report. It's a busy time of year in the business office. We have negotiations going on. The governor gave her condition of the state report. We have health insurance quotes that are starting to come in. All these different things that we start looking at the cost for the coming years. So one of the things that I had put in the report is we have taken a look at the governor's condition of the state, and some of the things that we're seeing in there is the amount of additional dollars our district will receive. So one of the things that is in there is she's proposing a 2% increase to the state foundation aid. That amounts across the state for public education of about $102 million. That is for a number of students totaling 483,699 students as of October 1st of 2024. The education savings accounts, granted I just said $102 million for public education. Education savings accounts, which yield 36,195 students, will have an increase of just shy of 97 million. So 102 million for 483,699 students and 96.6 million for 36,195 students. Keep that in mind as I walk down through some of the rest of this. Some of the other things that were in there is they did continue the supplemental support for classified staff. Right now we are using those dollars to pay out once a semester. If you're here at the start of the school year and you're still here as the second semester starts, you get paid a stipend as a classified staff member, and again in second semester if you're here at the end of the year. Now, another item that's in there or not in there, you'll recall House File 2612 was written into law, signed into law on March 27th of 24. What that is the minimum salary for teachers. So in fiscal 25, our current year, that took the minimum salary for new teachers to $47,500. In fiscal 26, which is next school year, that increases to $50,000. In addition to that, those teachers that have 12 years of experience for fiscal year 25, our current year, it increased their minimum salary to $60,000, and then again next year increasing to $62,000. So what's the impact on North Polk School District? Well, what was written into the funding last year was teacher salary supplement to help cover that increased cost, to help cover that cost of those people getting those raises, much deserved raises, but they gave us dollars to help us cover that cost. Those dollars are not currently written into the budget. So we are looking at a cost of absorbing what that cost might be into our school district. Additionally, if you look at our historical amounts for our state supplemental aid, I'll kind of read going back. In 2025, we had 2.5%. In 24, we had 3%. In 23, we had 2.5%. 22, 2.4, 21, 2.3, 20, 2.06. So it took going all the way back to 2019 to find a state supplemental aid increase that was less than what they're proposing for next year. That's hard. That is very hard. Right now, we have budgeted, when we do our budget projections, knowing what we've had historically, we have budgeted 2.5% into our projections. We also budget knowing that CPI, or Consumer Price Index, for the Midwest is 3%. We budget an increase of 3% in our expenses. So we're looking at, we budgeted 2.5 revenue, very possibly could end up being 2% revenue, yet we're looking at a 3% increase in overall expenses. So another thing that we look at, as I talked about, we're talking about our health insurance increases. The projections that are coming out, which we have not received ours yet, we're looking at an average of 8%. So when I ran these into our solvency ratio, so I'm going to give you a little bit of, we've got a lot of extra people here. Solvency ratio is those dollars that you still have in your balances that can be used for expenditures going forward. Those cannot be dollars that are earmarks for a specific purpose. You can't use those except for that purpose. So the dollars that remain that can be used for ongoing expenditures are divided by the total revenues in the general fund. So our board, we say 10 to 15% solvency ratio is where we want to be. It used to be you did an 8 to 10%, but with all the increases and the unknowns, that has ratcheted up to 10 to 15%. So if I run just changing that 2.5% that we thought we might see down to the 2%, we decrease at a rate of 10.2% from, from fiscal year 26 through fiscal year 30. So about 10% decrease in our solvency ratio. If I run with the 2.5% revenues increase, then we decrease only 4.4%. Now, keep in mind, as we continue to grow, our revenues do grow. So although that balance might stay the same, when that denominator increases, that is a smaller percentage. So although that is decreasing, that doesn't mean our balances are decreasing. We just have to be more efficient and more creative in how to be great public stewards of our dollars. So as we go into this legislative session, I would encourage, I thank you guys for doing an amazing job being advocates for public schools and public education, but I would encourage everybody in here to reach out to your legislators, let them know that it is not enough to sustain what we are doing in the public schools. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions?
Nope, you did a great job summarizing the current situation and the inadequacy of the proposals that we're hearing anyway right now. So thank you, Chris. Greatly appreciated.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight that real quickly because I think generally the public doesn't have a full understanding when they hear SSA and a percentage what that actually means. So when Michael and the board meet with our elected representatives, we're really shooting for 3% or over is what we're asking for, because we really have to compare that percentage to inflation. If we're under inflation, that means we're not netting the same amount of dollars. So 3% or over is what we're really shooting for. We rarely get there. 2.5 really means you have to tighten up. 2%, we have to change how we do business. And that's, I look at that as just the reality. 2% doesn't, compared to 2.5, doesn't sound like that big of a difference, but it really is. When you have inflation that's 7%, you get 2.4%, then it's 6.8%, and you get 2.3%. You add this up, compounded over 5 years, then you're net 10 to 15% where you were 6 years ago.
I'll just make one more comment too, is that, we as a growing district obviously there are districts that are not in our situation and they're shrinking. So these are obviously much more difficult conversations to have compared to what we are. But the thing to always remember too is what's the turn time? 18 months when we have new students arrive as to when we receive those dollars?
Depends on when the students arrive. If they're at the beginning of the year, it's about 10 months lag time until we get it the following. Well, 12 months till the following September. But if we have a student that shows up, at our door on October 2nd, we might not get dollars for those students for almost 2 years.
Despite the fact that we need to have seats on buses, seats in classrooms, and teachers to teach in those classrooms. So this funding stream is extremely, extremely important. And there are few of us will be at Capitol Hill next week advocating for public education. We've already met with our legislators. We've already talked to them about some of these policies and challenges that we have to actually execute on. So I really do strongly advocate anybody and everybody, call your state legislators, talk to them, ask questions. Ask us questions. We are happy to have a conversation. In 7 years, I've met with a lot of state legislators, and we continue to hear the same thing. But we heard Chris mentioned, what was the insurance increase going to be?
It's averaging 8%.
8%.
Ours is in a couple weeks.
And I will mention that when we heard 8%, we get excited about that because it's usually much, much higher.
And property insurance, same thing. We all live in the state of Iowa. We've all seen our increases on our what our property insurance is. So yeah, it's it's an interesting time for public education for sure.
Does anybody else have any questions for any administrator or director? Hearing none, let's move on to construction report.
All right. Good evening, everyone. All right, construction. CTE edition going on. We've got walls up, roofs on, storefront windows are coming in. The north side's farther along than the rest. If you drive on the west elevation, you'll see a lot of temporary enclosures. Those are different. It's a translucent panel that goes there. We get that in February. So by the end of February should be fully enclosed. But moving along nice out there. Our biggest hurdle right now is getting heat into the building. We've got temporary heaters set up, but we got to get we got to get the building warmed up inside so we can pour slabs, and then that'll start kicking off all wall layout and everything. So overall, CTE feeling really good about where we sit schedule-wise and contingency as well. So fields, again, the cold is hurting us down there, but not too bad yet. We did have to temporarily heat our enclosure, or temporary heat for masonry setup for our load-bearing walls. Those are done at the concession stand where you've set trusses now. We'll get some plywood on the roof and then start pumping heat into that space so we can pour a slab and finish out those walls. That was a necessary expense in winter conditions. We do have about 4 months left of construction inside the concession stand. Outside, we've got a little bit more leniency. We've got all the turf is on site now. Baseball field, most of it is laid. They have communicated to us that they're going to show up whenever temperatures allow. So we had thought they'd maybe pull off for the winter, but they're going to stick with it best they can. Feel really good about where we sit for getting the turf installed and put down. And then once we get warmed up back outside, we've got some site paving to do and really tidy everything up there. So again, that one, we're still on track to meet our substantial completion date at the fields. Contingency wise, we are sitting okay. We do know we have some expenses that are going to hit that contingency here that we're talking through on a bi-weekly basis with the project team. So any questions specifically?
Looking at the renderings of the CTE wing versus kind of what we're looking at. So you say translucent. What does that explain what that's going to be?
It's just a different glazing system.
Is it going to be glass?
Yes, it's transparent. It will let light in, but it's not a storefront system.
Gotcha.
Installed by the same contractor, just a different system.
And was that 18,374? Was that less than you anticipated for the fields? Remember
Winter conditions?
Yeah, for the winter conditions.
That's a not to exceed cost.
Okay. NTE. Okay.
Yeah, that not to exceed cost. We are done with that work for now from the mason, so we'll work on getting those tickets from the contractor, and then we'll submit that final cost. Based on how quickly they got things done, I feel very comfortable with that number they gave us.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Thanks.
Thank you. All right, last piece before new business, superintendent report.
I've already talked a lot tonight, so I'll try to be brief here. But the one thing I will say is I'm just very thankful for our community that we have here at North Polk. People that have reached out with questions and concerns about the calendar and the start times have been nothing but respectful. I think the modeling of civil discourse that we have in this community is something to be commended, and I appreciate everyone that has reached out with questions and feedback. And ultimately, it is change, and we're not going to be able to make 100% people happy with whatever is approved, but I cannot be more thankful for the conversations I've had and people sharing feedback. So I love our community.
All right, just a reminder to board members, your first two items in new business, your second one doesn't have anything in there necessarily to be voted on. So if we look at number one, the district calendar, if there is a discussion or motion, you might want to include start dates with the district calendar. And then in number two, start times, excuse me, dates too, because that's on the calendar. And number two, I can speak to where we're currently sitting with preschool transportation. So we'll go number one, 25-26 North Polk School District calendar. Anyone have any questions they want to ask?
I wanted to say thank you for everyone who came. I also had some emails and people reach out to me. Everybody was respectful, brought lots of points of ideas. Even though you might not see or hear them necessarily in the forefront, I do just want to point out there are lots of considerations that happen behind the scenes in this example. I talked to Mr. Klein about a parent's concern about appointments, and so he double checked that our Ankeny calendar and our North Polk calendar were not all on the same days, since a lot of our kids go to the orthodontist or doctors in Ankeny. So even if they weren't necessarily discussed up front, I do want people to know that those conversations happen behind the scenes. And I also wanted to echo Matt's comments about maybe not having the most popular choice at home. That was the last thing my 7th grader said as I walked out the door was, "Remember how crabby I am on Mondays, Mom." So sometimes we have to make decisions that aren't popular for our kids as well. But I do want to just say thank you for some of you that were here, because whenever you highlight ideas or ask questions that we maybe don't have kids that are that age, or we don't have those business concerns, it allows us to think proactively instead of reactively down the road. So if we can have some conversations about what kids are working in daycare centers, how can we use school to work programs? Is there an option with DMAC? Is there ways that we can help parents with before and after school care? If we can start having those conversations as a board now, the pains in the fall and winter and spring of next year, our hope is to alleviate some of those. So that's all I have.
I guess just one other comment too is that, again, this conversation has been going on for a couple of years, and I apologize if not everybody's aware that we've been talking about it, but we did. Michael came to us with, "Hey, we need to start talking about double routing our buses," and we all said, "What? That doesn't make any sense." And then as you start to dive into maybe what the rationale and what the lack of options are, that's kind of where where this current proposal kind of comes from. So again, the probably opportunity to, especially big changes like this, we can, we did talk about it 2 years ago, but we probably do need to start reinforcing that is something that's in discussion. So the next big change that we'd potentially have to make, we need to make sure that we are appropriately communicating with that with everybody. So that is a note that definitely we'll take.
We'll just add in the school district, I think it was 5 years ago, and Seth and Corey, I'm looking at you guys. I think 5 or 6 years ago, bumped the start time from 8:30 up to 8:15 because of the concerns with students having to leave as often as they were for those fine art or those conference type activities. And so The 5 years ago is when it was moved up to where it sits right now at the 8:15 to 3:15. So, because it used to be 8:30 to 3:30, over 5 years ago.
All right, any other discussion?
I am going to move to approve the 25-26 North Polk calendar with a starting date of August 25th and start times for elementary 7:50. Sorry, at 7:50 and the secondary at 8:20.
And Big Creek will be 7:55.
Big Creek 7:55. I apologize. I forgot about the 5-minute gap.
Second.
Motion by Ashley, second by Keith. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you, everyone. So next one, approving transportation for 25-26. Like I mentioned, we don't have anything necessarily to move on this one. We have had discussions about preschool transportation, where we currently sit with that. We're still to be determined on what exactly it looks like, but the intention is to keep that midday preschool transportation, but we're looking at potentially adding a fee, but we don't have exact clarity and haven't had enough discussions as a board to what exactly that would look like. Michael, you're welcome to speak a little bit more on it.
Yeah, so by state code, we're obligated to provide transportation for students that live more than 2 miles from school buildings to school for kindergarten through 12th grade. Nothing obligates us to the preschool transportation. As I shared last month, it seems to be a line. Bigger districts don't provide the preschool transportation. Smaller districts tend to provide the transportation. We've heard enough feedback that we have no intentions of taking it away, but because it's not an obligation of the district, having some sort of a fee associated with it so that we can have a para on all of the buses to help them run more efficiently. Because like I was talked about earlier, I mean, those midday routes get to be almost an hour in length because it's all 4-year-olds on the bus. And so to manage and drive safely, and I mean, we have one of our preschool drivers here with us, it is a lift for those drivers. And so to make sure that it's safe, efficient, and again, not having it is not really, the intention was never a financial savings. It was, how do we help ourselves to do things and do things well? And so having it continue is our intention. Preschool registration will start tomorrow, with the Wednesday being the day that we don't have preschool moving forward. And what that looks like exactly, we'll iron out the fee and get that approved, but that's likely where we're going.
We just wanted to mention that there will be midday preschool transportation. Concern from the board had been those in-home centers and whether people can keep using those. We heard from those people. So yeah, we don't have a determination on what that fee structure would look like. I've asked that we at least not apply that to any families that qualify for free and reduced lunches. Anybody else have any commentary on this?
Not currently, but I'm not in favor of it at this point.
To be specific, you're not in favor of the fee. You are in favor of transportation.
Provide free preschool transportation. That's where I'm at right now. Thank you.
Anybody else? Otherwise, we can move on to item 3. All right, item 3 is approving the resolution approving the expenditure of funds in the flexibility account within the general fund. This was the public hearing we began the meeting with.
And this is for teacher leadership supplement teacher. So this is to approve expenditures in the flexibility account within the general fund for these 3 items for teacher leadership, teacher quality, professional development, and
That's the amount of money that's going to the flex account to be
from
used
those-
for
from those
yep.
existing
Yep.
funds. Okay.
Right, so I can elaborate a little bit. So these are the balances that were in those restricted funds. I talked about restricted funds where you can't use them for anything else. They're only earmarked for that particular purpose. Within Iowa code, we are allowed to make transfers to the general fund if we are supporting those programs and have dollars left over. So these are dollars that were in those accounts at the end of fiscal '24, that we are moving into the general fund to use for the purposes that you approve.
And the reason there was, 44, 39, the excess in those accounts in the last fiscal?
So we, teacher leadership and teacher quality, those are our professional development programs, and Miranda does a great job getting a lot of our education and stuff for our teachers organized and does an efficient job with that. So those dollars, we're providing all of the education pretty much that people are asking for. And then some. We also do some district-wide, and so we have utilized the dollars as well as we can, and these are just balances that were left over. The homeschool assistance, we have a very robust program as well. Vivian Johnston is our teacher, and she's amazing. They're nothing shy of that. These students also get anything and everything that they are needing as well, and those are funds that are left over.
And I believe these are actually smaller amounts than they've been in the past as well. So we have used more of them.
They seem like they are.
And keep in mind the teacher leadership and the teacher quality, that is for certified staff only, so that does not cross over into classified or hourly staff or administrators.
Just as a reference, what do those accounts start out at? Do you know? You remember?
I can look real quick.
You can get it back to me. I mean, it's fine. I was just curious on how much we actually spent versus how much have left over.
And is that what we budgeted, or that's an allocated different bucket of money?
Say that again.
Is that money that we budgeted and put into those accounts, or is it that's money
No,
from the
it
state
comes in
given
from the
based
state.
on the, yeah, okay.
Do you want to wait for the starting balance, Matt? Do you want to wait for the starting balance?
Yeah, she can just respond via email. That's fine.
Okay.
So just procedurally, when someone makes a motion and the second, those X's are teacher leadership supplements
Yep.
and teacher quality professional development. And then we will be a roll call vote.
Motion to approve the expenditure of funds in the flexibility account within the general fund for the purpose of teacher leadership supplement, teacher quality professional development, and homeschool assistance supplement in the amount being $137,168.65
For the use of salaries and benefits and any other general fund expenditures.
for the planned expenditures of salary, benefits, and any other general fund expenditures.
Thank you.
Second. Nope.
Okay, yes.
Second.
Roll call, Hill,
Aye.
Iker,
Aye.
Gorman,
Aye.
Delaney.
Aye.
Thank you.
Item 4, approve commissioning quote for systems work for NPCTE.
This is less than what was budgeted for the commissioning, but they do. DCI, our partner, does the receiving of the bids, and this was the low bid.
Motion to approve system work for commissioning for the CTE building for $17,655.
Second?
Keith and Ashley, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next up is approve staff with a 181-day letter of assignment to be paid for the first 2 missed snow days according to regularly scheduled hours for those days.
So it has, over the past number of years, not been the intention of the board to add on the first 2 snow days because we have the extra hours in the school calendar. And so for our classified employees, if they don't work, they don't get paid. And so this is what we've talked about with the classified staff and moving forward, so that those 2 days, any more than 2, we're likely going to make up those hours in canceling late starts or adding time to the end of the year. But those first 2 days, we tend to not make up. And so knowing that paychecks are a little light over the winter months anyways, with the winter break holiday and other holidays, this is something that we would like to do.
Motion to, oh, I'm sorry.
No, just one of the things about that is we try as a staff or as a board and as a staff to really think outside the box on how do we try to provide, the best benefit package possible, and being able to add those 2 snow days, which are pretty likely to happen, being able to provide those 2 extra days paid, I think is very important for recruitment and retention and just the culture of it. Thank you.
Motion to approve staff with a 180-day letter of assignment to be paid for the first 2 missed snow days according to their regular scheduled hours for those days. Oh, 181, I'm sorry.
Second.
Ashley and Keith, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, next up on item 6, we are looking at approving 2 additional full-time employees for the 25-26 school year. Full 1.0 middle school core teacher, which is 6th grade, is that
Yep.
correct? And then 1 additional special ed teacher.
And this is just our biggest class in the whole district right now is 5th graders. So they will be moving to the middle school as 6th graders. And our current 7th grade is a big group too. So there'll be 2 of our largest, I think they are actually the 2 largest classes in the entire district in the middle school next year. And so for class size, having that additional core teacher is important. And then as we see increased number of students qualifying for special education services and some of the increased needs, this role will be there to support them.
Motion to approve 1.0 middle school core teacher and a 1.0 additional special education teacher for 25-26.
Second.
Motion by Iker, second by Borman. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item number 7. Approve amendment in the resolution authorizing an interfund loan from Fund 33, which is SAVE, to Fund 31, which is capital projects, to be repaid from bond proceeds.
So this one we had approved previously, but when we were making that transfer, we put Big Creek in there was what the expenses were for. And that's not the bond that the projects that we were doing. It's the central edition and the middles. Wrong answer. It is the CTE edition and the softball baseball field. So it's all of those expenses that we paid for prior to receiving our bond dollars on those initiatives.
This doesn't require
As
roll
in-
call, does it? It kind of reads as it might. Let's do roll call just in case, once we get answer any questions.
Well, and so the language is in here in our agenda, though. It says Central Elementary Edition and North Polk Middle School Edition. So we're taking, can you repeat that, Chris? So this is expenditures against CTE and baseball, softball that we had ahead of receiving the bond revenues? Is that what we're doing? So we are repaying money to what from bond revenues?
So we paid it out of the SAVE fund.
Okay, so we're repaying. Okay, so we're repaying SAVE fund from bond revenues for CTE and baseball, softball.
That is correct.
Okay, so the wording in here still says Central Elementary Edition, North Polk Middle School, so it should not say that,
Before
correct?
it said Big Creek, and that's on me, Sarah. I
So
apologize.
it should.
We have a lot of projects going
So it should
on.
say CTE Edition and baseball, softball, correct?
Yes, it is CTE and baseball, softball.
But it's still an inter-fund loan from.
Yes.
True statement.
But this says loan from Fund 33 to Fund 31. It should be the other way around.
That
Good.
is correct.
Because we're repaying bond revenue back
We
to.
are repaying Fund 30, or
So
33 fund, from Fund 31, our construction bond. Oh dear, that's a hot mess.
No, so then my question would be, do we need 24 hours of this published before making a motion and vote like this?
We approved the agenda.
Yeah,
What-
We can bring it back next month, that's not.
Well, we can also,
We
we
can
can
table
always
it
put it
till-
on a virtual consent
Yes,
agenda.
I would
and
I would
table it
prefer to
until
do
then.
that. That way we have everything correct.
Yep, that's absolutely fine.
So
As long as you're good with it. Okay.
Yep. We have 18 months from the time that we have the expenditures until we can no longer move them, so we have plenty of.
Yes.
So I'll move to table this approval of the amendment resolution authorizing the interfund loan from tonight to our next, to the next,
We can do the regular board meeting or the virtual consent meeting,
or just the next virtual consent meeting, which would
Just
be,
put it on the virtual consent.
yeah, the next virtual consent meeting
which would be, I think, February 3rd,
on February 3rd.
whatever that Monday is.
For a point of reference, if anybody is interested, the original interfund loan from Fund 33 to Fund 31 was approved on July 22nd of 24. So this would be the negating of that interfund
Yeah,
loan.
so it also said 2 Fund 31, and that's not correct, it's reversed.
Well,
I'm saying the original approval is on the 22nd of July.
Yes.
either way, motion to table this one, then we can have it correctly stated, and that's all right.
Yep.
That's why I was trying to dig it in. I'm like, okay, I need to make sure I understand where this is going.
All right, item 7 has been tabled, which moves us to, need a second, vote to table. We haven't always. You go for it.
Second.
All in favor of tabling?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
All right, item 8 and item 9. I want to talk about both of them first. So one of our board goals is to have a high participation rate, especially in our middle school and high school, because outcomes for students that are involved in at least one activity for graduation and their grades and a lot of different things that follow is very important. So always looking at and excited to see different things brought to us for approval. So with that said, on to item 8, approving the high school chess club.
And this is one that I believe the students came to one of the teachers and said, hey, we want to start a chess club. And so in order to be able to set up some accounts, if there are costs associated with it, currently it is a voluntary position for the sponsor of the chess club. So there's no cost there with personnel, but so that it is fully approved, bring it here to the board.
Motion to approve a new chess club, excuse me. Motion to approve a new club, high school chess.
Second.
Motion by Ikers, second by Borman. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we'll follow up with item 9, approval of the high school esports team.
So excited to get this moving. This will allow up to 24 high school students to be involved. There's a different game per season. There's a fall, a winter, and a spring season. We're planning on starting here this March for a spring season. Again, we have 2 coaches excited to volunteer to get this off the ground and moving. But then those positions we will look to stipend depending on the commitment of how much time there is and where that could fall on our back page salary schedule for esports. But quite a few other districts in the area have the esports. The spring competition game that we will be participating in is Mario Kart, and so I did say I may have to go to practice someday and see how it goes. But excited to get this started. I know we have some students interested in it already. So the high school esports, and kudos to Matt Eichhorn for getting it all organized.
Motion to approve high school esports team.
Second.
Motion by Borman, second by Iker. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Item 10, approving STEM Honor Society and Science Club.
Again, trying to get students involved in things. High school science teachers came with these concepts of putting these clubs together, and we have a fair number of other honor societies, and so adding this for students interested in STEM and science.
Motion to approve motion to approve the STEM Honor Society and Science Club as outlined in the proposal.
Second.
Motion by Ashley, second by Keith. All in favor?
Aye.
And our last one, item 11, approving fiscal year 26 North Polk High School band trip to New York City.
So our high school band and high school choir often take a big trip on a every other year rotation. And so the high school band, I know last time went to New York City, and it must have been a great trip because that's where they would like to go again in the spring of 26.
Motion to approve the fiscal year 25 North Polk High School band trip to New York City over a 5 to 6 day period between March 14th and March 22nd, 2026.
Second.
Motion by Ashley, second by Keith. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that moves us to item 11, public comments from individual board members. I'm going to start at this end first. Mr. Eicher, have anything?
Just a few things. Hopefully everybody's enjoying their cold January. Next week, I'm excited to, first of all, thank the board for allowing Kyle and I to travel with some of our administrators to San Antonio next week and to do some networking and more importantly, some learning. And so I'm excited to some of the breakout sessions they sent out today. They're very, very interesting, and I think we're all going to be able to come back with some great ideas to implement within our district. So thank you for that. That's all I have.
Keith?
Thanks again for everybody that did come tonight to share your opinions. I mean, this is how this should work. I'm happy to see some faces in the audience, even though, I mean, maybe isn't the result that you're looking for. But, we do really appreciate the emails, appreciate the commentary because, again, this has been an ongoing conversation. And then the emails that we've received and the conversations that have been had in the last month, I mean, it's obviously shaped how we got to where we are today. We do have to make decisions sometimes, and like Michael kind of alluded to, change is difficult, and so we will continue to flesh some of the things associated with this change out, and there'll be more and more communication that will continue to go out. And I do appreciate the willingness to kind of reopen up some conversations on what we could do for opportunities for some before or after. So I mean, there's always other things that we can continue to work towards, and we will always do that. But then I'll go back to the comment. So next week I'll be at the State House with Michael and a couple others as well, and we will be meeting with every person that we can related to issues that impact public education. When Chris mentioned some of the values associated with public education and the 430-some thousand students that take advantage of public education every day compared to those that are using the vouchers, that is kind of that's a surprising number. But we continue to look at scenarios. Chris mentioned our solvency ratio. I mean, that's where we look at, like tonight, we just approved 2 new teachers. And we don't do that that takes a lot of thought and consideration that goes into it because we know what that means for us as a district and our costs. And, now having those teachers as part of the staff, we obviously need them based on the growth. Michael already mentioned the largest classes that we've had coming through. But every single teacher, every single job that we have to hire, we can take a lot of we have some significant conversations on what that means, and we run through financial scenarios to make sure that we can afford it not just today, but we can afford it 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, because that's what being fiscally responsible means to us. So as a growing district, we are in a good place, but you never know what might happen, and so that's the scenarios that we try to play out. So I just want to make sure if people have questions on any of the financial stuff, reach out to any of us. Reach out to Mr. Klein. He's a wealth of knowledge. Chris, obviously a wealth of knowledge. But reach out to your legislators, please. I continue to say that. I will say it again. Reach out to your legislators. Thank you.
I'm going to kind of veer in a totally different direction. Couple things that I just wanted to say. Congratulations to all the middle school kids that finished their first round of winter sports. We have our second round of winter sports starting at the middle school. Shout out to Anita and our Big Creek friends who got boneless wings put on the menu and got to be featured on WHO Channel 13. Megan Salwa is actually a really good friend of mine, and she had so much fun doing that story. And I think it's fun when we get to see those bright spots in our days. With Matt referencing the cold weather, I just wanted to point out a couple of things that people might not realize. Marcy and our bus drivers, every morning when they do their checks, they are outside for 30 minutes checking every light bulb and every seat and every bumper to make sure that those buses are safe. And that means they are outside in the coldest part of the day every single morning for 30 minutes doing those checks. So thank you to them, because I know that cannot be the most pleasant part of your day. And on mornings like this, when there's the extra steps of making sure diesel doesn't gel and buses are plugged in. So thank you. And on that same note, to our custodial and ground staff, that is out early in the morning, clearing walks, putting salt down, putting down extra rugs for the snow that gets tracked in. So thank you to them for all of those extra time. And the other piece I just wanted to say is part of what makes the school district go round is volunteers. And a lot of times they're not recognized as much as they need to. But just in this agenda alone, Joe Bagley, Jean Kloss, Dalton Dodge, Jacob Griffin, Quinn Groff, and Hannah Bergstrom all were on the agenda as volunteers making something go round for kid activities, for programs, for honor societies, for activities, something. Joe Weiser got an award this week for being an outstanding volunteer for wrestling. Tonight, there's also a Big Creek STEM night going on. That's being run by teachers who are volunteering for 2.5 hours to run a STEM night. The SIAC group that Michael mentioned that met for hours outside of the school year and talked to neighbors about the calendar. All of those things make the district go around. So for all of you that are putting in the extra hours and volunteering, thank you.
I got a text message, 371 attendees at STEM night tonight at Big Creek.
That's great. I will, that is an awesome number, actually. This is one of the last year was the first time I went to it. It's one of the funnest events I've been to, as I was there as a dad, but as a board member, it was really, really cool. Just to finish up here real quick, I just want to mention to the board, as all of you know, we're hitting a pretty busy time of year with negotiations starting up. Keith will be with you at the State House next week, a number of different committees that we're on and so forth. I will touch base with all of you. Our next meeting is February 3rd with a virtual consent agenda. I am feeling like it's necessary to put together some more work sessions. I will talk to all of you, but I'd like to start putting some of those work sessions with those virtual consent agendas, because just thinking off the top of my head, need to sit down and talk state report card, what that looks like. Obviously need to talk organizational chart. Tonight we were gonna do some tech. We still need to dive into that. And then I'll touch base with you on all the different things we need to kind of hammer out over the next few months. And that's all I have for tonight. Anyone have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Keith and Ashley, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone.